Coming up on the Paper Talk today, we've been linked with a midfielder from Italy. Also, we've been linked with a left-back from London. So, let's get into it. Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford, and you know what? It's starting to spit. It's spitting. Get them in. So you probably need your Parkers today. Loads of stories to get through, so we'll crack on. A few stories sort of looking at transfers, other stories talking about what's going on elsewhere, so we'll get into all that good stuff. On the transfer front, the big story doing the rounds is Ederson from Atalanta. Now, there's a journalist called Nicolo Scherer, if I'm pronouncing that right. He's got a few 100,000 followers on X, formerly known as Twitter. Whether you put much weight in that, I don't know, but he is followed by some prominent and reliable journalists as well, and his pinned tweet or post is him saying that Calafiore, an exclusive, that Calafiore is going to go to Arsenal from a couple of years ago, which obviously was true. Now, he's gone big on the idea that terms have been agreed between Manchester United and Ederson for a transfer to Old Trafford, obviously. So it looks like terms could be agreed there. Now, this is developing a little bit, and we'll have to keep our eye on it and see whether anyone else is going to go big on this, whether anyone from the sort of English media is going to back this up and say that it is accurate. But it does feel like Ederson to Manchester United is gathering a little bit of momentum. Now, if you remember, about, I'm going to say a year ago, it might be a few months off, it felt like there was something in this transfer. We were linked with Ederson. A lot of people said this makes sense. Looks like a decent midfielder. He can play as a sort of a DM or a bit more of a box-to-box player. He's got a good engine on him. He'd complement some of the other midfielders we've got. It all made sense. And there was a figure of around 50 million quid that was being touted, which you think, okay, is reasonable. I think he's 26, so he's slightly older than most of the players we go for, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Manchester United buy a 26-year-old for around 50 million quid. However, then it went a bit cold. Then it looked like he was going to go to Atletico Madrid. Then it looked like Manchester United were looking elsewhere. We were looking at the likes of Adam Wharton, Carlos Baleba, Sandro Tonali, for example, and people weren't really speaking as much about Ederson. And I just thought, okay, someone who covers Manchester United news quite regularly, I didn't see much in the idea of Ederson coming to Old Trafford. However, that appears to have changed. It now does look like Manchester United are in for him. It looks like we're making moves to make this happen. And also, let's not forget, John Murtagh, who is a person I've criticised quite heavily on this channel over the years, because I think he's been one of the reasons Manchester United have struggled post Sir Alex Ferguson. He was at United and he went to Atalanta. Now, one of the reasons I've sort of criticised John Murtagh, as I think he made some poor decisions in the transfer market. He had a hand in many of our transfers over the last few years, and I think by and large, up until recently, they were pretty bad ones. And one of the bad decisions that we made was paying 72 million quid from Atalanta, or to Atalanta, for Rasmus Højlund. And John Murtagh was heavily involved in that deal. And what happened? He goes into that deal. We more or less make it clear that Rasmus Højlund is our only target. We give Atalanta exactly what they want. And then John Murtagh gets a job at Atalanta as head of development or something, I think his title is. However, despite all that, there is a connection, obviously, between John Murtagh and Manchester United. Maybe that could pave the way when the clubs start talking to one another. I just be a little wary of dealing with him. We'll have to wait and see how that pans out. But it does seem as though Ederson could be a target for Manchester United. And when you think about it, when you think about the players we've been linked with, we've been speaking about this a lot on the channel. I want you guys to get involved in the chat and the comments and let me know what you think. We can't go out in the summer and buy Baleba and Wharton and Anderson. We're not going to do that. We'll probably get one of those, if any of them. But we need more than one midfielder. We need two, probably three midfielders. So we're going to have to shop around and buy midfielders that are around 40, 50 million quid. And you ain't going to get that from a player who's played in the Premier League, is in his early 20s, and he's absolutely smashing it. You're just not. That's not going to happen. Not unless they're out of contracts in, a year's time, and I don't see any of those players on the horizon. I mean, by all means, point out if there are any. So you would think if we are going to get one of the aforementioned Premier League players, we're going to have to go elsewhere for someone else. We're going to have to go abroad probably and try and get a bit of a cheaper deal. Now, one of the players we've been linked with is Angelo Stieler. He's a player that producer Ben absolutely raves about. However, there's a bit of intrigue onto his buyout clause and whether he could be got for around 43 million quid. So we'll have to sort of put a pin in that one for now. So Ederson seems quite interesting. It does seem like there's a little bit of fire to the smoke. We will keep you posted as always. Let me know what you think. I think he scored last night, didn't he? Against Milan. I think he got the first goal for Atalanta. I wouldn't get too giddy about his goals. He's not in the team for that. I think it's his first goal in Serie A all season. So He's not a goal scorer, but he is a good player. So, yeah, worth keeping an eye on because it seems like there's a little bit of momentum behind that one. In other news, other transfer news, a player we've been linked with is Diouf, El Hadji Malik Diouf from West Ham. Now, if you remember, just before AFCON, I think it was, Carl Anker was on the channel and he was talking about Diouf as a potential target of Manchester United, and he was saying that he's a player he thinks United should be looking at, he thinks United should try and get. Now, he's 21 years old, he's a left-back. That is an area we need reinforcements. I know we've got Dorgu, I know we've got Luke Shaw, but we could probably do with one other, couldn't we? Because Dorgu can play a bit further forward. Luke Shaw, who is having a very good season, especially in terms of availability, which I don't say that very often about Luke Shaw, but can you rely on him long-term? No, you can't. So you need another option, and it feels as though the likes of Harry Amas, for example, I don't really see him getting into the team. Maybe I'm going to be wrong, but it does feel like that's gone a little bit cold. So, yeah, do we go into the transfer market? I think we probably do. Now, West Ham are looking like they're going to get relegated. I'm going to get to that game in a minute. So, Diouf could be available. However, I think it's Football Insider who was saying Manchester United ain't going to get him on the cheap. West Ham are determined to get good money for him. He's one of their saleable assets. They've got a few. I think we've been linked with Fernandez as well. Is Jared Bowen going to go? Maybe, maybe not. I think he's sort of a pretty much a die-hard Hammer, and he might end up staying there. So they have got others though who are probably available, who they can sell, and Diouf is one of them. But according to Football Insider, if Manchester United want him, and we have been linked with him, we're going to have to pay a bit of a premium. I'm going to mention the West Ham Arsenal game as well, because it's quite interesting, because this has been doing the rounds on social media quite a lot, because a lot of United fans and some journalists as well, I think Mike Keegan from the Daily Mail posted this on X, are pointing out the inconsistencies when it comes to VAR. So, West Ham get a late equaliser at the London Stadium yesterday, an equaliser that could have more or less handed the title to Manchester City. However, after a lengthy review, and it was a lengthy review, by VAR, and then calling Chris Kavanagh to the screen, which took another minute and a half or whatever, I think it was about 6 minutes or 5 minutes in total for the entirety of that VAR review, it's decided that there's a foul on David Raya. So the West Ham equaliser doesn't count. I think it was Callum Wilson who'd scored it. Now, people are going, well, if you go back to the first game of the season here at Old Trafford for United, there was a bit of a melee going on in the box, a similar one to what we saw for West Ham versus Arsenal. And Bayern was sort of impeded somewhat by William Saliba, I think it was. And that wasn't given as a foul. Now, people are saying, why are you giving a foul against Raya and you didn't give one against Saliba? There's a couple against Saliba on Bayern. There's a couple of things I will say on this front. One, I'm not overly bothered, right? It's just me. I don't like Manchester City more than I don't like Arsenal. I'm not fussed if City lose the league because of a bad decision, and it's kind of ironic, isn't it? That someone is accused with, you know, some substance of 115 counts of cheating, then starts moaning about things being unfair. So I'm just going to put that out there. I'm sick of City winning titles. Yes, Arsenal are going to be unbearable, but it's just a load of noise on social media. I'm not that bothered. So I'm not going to lose any sleep about a goal maybe shouldn't have been given, being given, or not given, I should say. A goal that should have been given, not being given, that could cost City the title, because I'd rather Arsenal won the title than Manchester City, even though I hate them both. So I'm just going to say that. Secondly, there is a difference in those two incidents, so you can have a look and make your mind up yourself. I was more sort of blaming Bayern at the time. I'm not going to change my mind now. The Arsenal game, the thing that I was annoyed at, if you cast your mind back to that first game between Manchester United and Arsenal, was the foul by Saliba on Matheus Cunha, which I felt was a stonewall penalty to Manchester United. So I was miffed about that, but the foul on the keeper is another one. We're going to get into it a bit later on the Paddock podcast, because there are inconsistencies with VAR. And if you watch what went on in the box yesterday, there was all sorts. You could have given a foul. I think there was all sorts of pulling and shoving of West Ham players. You could have maybe even given a penalty to West Ham, because there was a lot of grappling going on by Arsenal players on West Ham players. It's just a mess. This whole scenario that the Premier League have got themselves into with VAR, with what's going on in the box, is a mess. And listen, I'm not just saying this because I'm going to be bitter, because Manchester United are actually doing better this season than we've done in the past seasons. But this season has been pretty shit. I'm sorry, it has. It's just been every game, more or less every game, is about VAR. It's about corners. It's about set pieces. It's about grappling in the box. It's about fouls on goalkeeper. It's about taking 10 minutes to come to a decision. It's about the outrage after it. It's just not been a great spectacle, has it, when it comes to the football? We've just been watching garbage week in, week out. And it might sound bitter, but I'll say it anyway. Arsenal are going to be one of the worst champions we've ever had. They are. You watch Arsenal, and they're not entertaining. It's not a great game of football. They've not got loads of attacking footballers, and you go, I can't wait to see Victor Gyökeres or Madueke or Bukayo Saka. These are pretty functional players. They're not all that, to be honest with you. And it's kind of bizarre that you've got a team that are going to finish, 15 points above United or whatever, and I wouldn't take hardly any of their attackers at Old Trafford. I wouldn't. And you can laugh at me and say, Jay, you're talking rubbish. I would not take any of their attackers. I would not swap Gyökeres for Sesko or, I don't know, Madueke for Cunha or whatever. I just wouldn't. I just think Arsenal are just a team that get the job done, but it ain't pleasant to watch. It's not been a great season. VAR is a shambles, and what's going on in every single corner does my Swede in. Anyway, enough of me ranting. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to be back later on with the Paddock podcast. If you're not doing so already, make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe, and check out the merchandise. I've been Jay Motter. This has been the Paper Talk outside a pretty cold Old Trafford. Thanks for watching.